Hello, everyone. So, for the last couple weeks, my husband and I have been working on restoring this old spinning wheel. It's, for my best guess, probably Swedish from the 1700s, but I don't really know for sure. So, if any of you have any idea, please leave it in the comments below. So, we decided to start. The first thing was on the flyer. The flyer had been snapped in half, so we had to recreate the flyer. It's not perfect, but this is the first spinning wheel we've restored. So it's the two sides are slightly off, but we were working from one, and after sanding, sand it down a little bit, get the shape a little bit better. And this one had no hooks. And if you know spinning wheels, most spinning wheels have a hook on the or a number of hooks on the flyer that your wool goes into to create an even spin across your this spool in the center. Um, and this one didn't have that. So, with a little research, I found out that there are some. I know there's new ones. I have one that's an e-spinner that has a slider on it, but there are a few older ones that do actually have a slider hook on them, and that could quite possibly have been what this was. So I decided to try and do that slider, to the best of my ability, because I'm, like I said, I don't know the history on the spinning wheel, so I did not have anything to fully reference on it. Um, the spinning wheel itself was bought in the 1950s in Wisconsin at a barn sale by my grandparents. And my mom had gone out to this barn sale too. And when they got it home, they realized that the foot pedal was not there. And they went back out to try and find this foot pedal at the barn sale, could not find it. And they had not actually bought the spinning wheel to spin with anyway. They had bought it for decoration, and it sat near their fireplace for years. And after they had passed away, um, it sat in my aunt's house, and she ended up giving it to me a couple years ago. And my goal has been to restore this wheel myself. I didn't want to send it to somebody else to do it. I wanted to do it myself. And my husband actually started to, well, he bought a lathe and started to learn how to use the lathe specifically so we could do this. And he's been getting really good with the lathe. I actually even started him his own Instagram page uh, with his woodworking, because he's been doing some amazing stuff. And we finally decided, okay, we're going to start working on this. And it has not, well, it has not been used for sure since they got it at the barn sale, because it has been in this condition since then, and that was in the 50s. And the more and more I researched it, the only information I could really find, I couldn't find anything exactly the same, but similar styles to this one were Swedish from the 1700s. So I'm thinking there's a possibility of that. And Wisconsin did tend to have more spinning wheels that ended up there. So this is a flax wheel, and the two holes that you may have seen in that second picture, those are a distaff hole, and generally there's only one hole, and I've only come across two other people that have one that has two holes. And to the best of our knowledge, we think it might just be to be able to put your distaff where you want it. The distaff was not there, and a lot of the older wheels, the distaff's not, because as the wheels get passed down and stuff, people don't realize what the distaff is, and it just gets left somewhere. The distaff was specifically, which is why it's a flax wheel, it was specifically made for holding your flax while you're spinning it. And flax is one that you actually have to have a water bowl too, because your fingers are supposed to be wet as you work the flax. So it's different. And the orifice hole on a flax wheel is much smaller because when you spin flax, you spin a very fine thread. So that's another way you can tell it's a flax wheel because it has this small hole. But that being said, just because it's a flax wheel does not mean you cannot spin wool. You can spin wool or other fibers with it. You just have to spin them a little bit finer because you only have so much room for it to go through the hole. So I'm trying to kind of shape this down a bit, and um, I wanted to add some of the detail into it that the other one had because I don't want it to lose, it was a unique looking wheel. And so I'm trying to the best that I can to recreate the flyer to the way it had been before. And put there's some little lines and stuff like that, decorative lines into it. And mine didn't look quite as good as the original one did, but I don't know. I liked it when it was done. Um, it works for what I needed it to do. And when this is all done, I will end up making the wood all match and everything, so it won't be this light colored wood. Most of your spinning wheels are actually all made in a light colored wood. And a lot of times when you get them, they're unfinished so that you can make them your own and fix that wheel to be like something you want. Some people like to paint theirs. Some will paint them and distress them, or they'll paint them and actually, I mean, really paint them. They'll put all kinds of colors and stuff onto them. But they look kind of cool. Not always my thing, but they do look kind of cool. Um, some just oil the wood down, which is what I tend to do because I like the natural color of the wood. Um, some will stain them and then oil them or lacquer them. I do have one wheel that came lacquered. Depending on where you're getting your spinning wheel from, you can choose the option of the unfinished or the lacquered. And I have one that was lacquered, and I have two other ones that were just the unfinished that I've oiled. And when you oil it, it actually darkens the wood up more than when it's lacquered. And then I have my e-spinner, which is actually I bought it, but it's a 3D printed e-spinner, and they're really nice. They work really well. Um, it's the e-wheel Nano. My main, so I have two Ashford traditionals. One is from the 1970s. The other one is the newer one. One's a single drive, one's a double drive. And then I have an Ashford Elizabeth. That's my main one I use most of the time. So here's how the flyer came out. I think it came out pretty good. I mean, the two sides are just slightly off, but I think it came out pretty good. So, and then we put it in the drill press, and we needed to make the hole that the orifice and shaft is actually going to go into. And we had to make sure that that went totally right in straight, because if it didn't, it's going to create a wobble and not spin right. But we got it all in there, oiled it down, and I mean, just oiling, it's amazing how it looks just when you oil it. But this has been stained, and you'll see more of the staining process later. But this has all been oiled and stained, and I think my video clips got a little bit out of order because the whirl is the other little disc I had picked up there. And there's video of my husband working on that on the lathe later down the video. But here it is. It all goes together. And so then I had to create the little hook, the slider hook that I wanted to put onto here. And I'm kind of guessing at this. I've seen one or two other ones and tried to kind of model this after ones that I had seen. But it's really kind of a guessing game at this point, and we'll see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just do something different. So here I'm using their paper clips, gold color paper clips. I actually use, it's a really nice stiff wire, and they're pretty. And I use them when I make the hooks in my drop spindles. And it's, like I said, real nice sturdy wire, and I am using that to make the little loop, I guess you could say, where the fiber will come, it'll go through the hook, then it'll go through this loop, then it goes into the orifice. And all these things are necessary to keep the fiber from tangling as it spins. So I'm making this little piece to go into there and drop a little glue in it, and it should stay. Shouldn't have any problem with that coming out at any point. Might have a problem getting the glue out of the bottle, but we won't have any problem with the piece coming out of the flyer. Just trying to wipe the glue off. I got a little bit onto the desk where it wasn't supposed to go, but there we go. There's the little hook. See, it goes through that way. So now we're working on, this piece is called the Mother of All, and we are working on that, trying to make new, it's where the flyer we were just working on needs to be held, and they're leather pieces, and one piece was very old, the other piece was completely broke. This is the foot pedal that we created, and then here we're using steel wool, and we're actually kind of sanding down the stuff, but we're using steel wool, and it's a little bit gentler on the finish because I don't want to take everything off. I want to leave some of that antique, patina to it. So then when I restain it, it still has an old look, but I want everything to match when I'm done. So the foot pedal that I was only up there for a second is actually a wood plank board from a friend's house. They had these hardwood floors put in their house a number of years ago, and they're absolutely beautiful. And he had these extra boards, and he gave us some, and I loved the way they look, so we used that as the foot pedal. And so the color that I try to put onto the spinning wheel when I'm done, I kind of modeled off after that because I didn't want to take the finish off of the board. It's really nice and smooth, and it has this little like wave in a sense almost to it, and I just really liked it. And I have that little piece of them that's on the spinning wheel. There it is, all stripped off, and it looks much different. It's so light in color. Um, the piece we end up making the distaff from was, the main part was a pole I found at my mom's and she's done passed away, so I've got a little bit of her there too. Here we are working on that whirl I was telling you about. So this is him spinning it on the lathe. He's got to get the dimensions the same as the original so that it will spin properly. So there's the original by it. Now here we're staining it, and you can see that foot pedal down there. It's a mahogany stain we're using because there's just this little bit of a red that was in that foot pedal, and I wanted that, but I wanted that darker color too, like it was when I got it. So now that it's all stained up, we're going to add a coat of oil. You can see the two holes, distaff holes in that image. So the things, there was cracks that we had to fix, clamp and glue and stuff like that. We had to make the pedal and the pole for the pedal. We had to make the new flyer. We completely re-glued the wheel and strapped the whole wheel down because it had actually, when it was used last, was off. There was a little groove in the table where the wheel had been hitting in the wrong spot. And I went about this part totally the wrong way. I could have made that easier on myself, and I had it in the right place before. I figured that out later. I needed it on the other side of that other leg. But so at this point, we've made all our pieces. This is the distaff I'm putting in there. The long pole of the distaff I had found at my parents' house. The short piece I had actually found at a secondhand craft store around here. And I'm like, oh, this will work perfect. And then my husband spun the middle bar, and the coloring on it just came out beautiful, the way the grain was in it. And then this is the drive band I'm putting on now, and this is a double drive wheel, so that means the band goes around twice around the wheel and the whirl. It goes around the wheel, the whirl, and the spindle. So it was such an amazing feeling to have this all put together and finished in workable. I was so excited. I wish my grandparents and my parents were here to see this. They would have loved it. So there was only one problem though at this point. The drive band came off because the mother of all was not in the right position. And the newer ones actually can adjust. This one can't. So it was all done, but I still couldn't use it. So we had to take it all apart again and figure out, what we could do. We ended up taking the mother of all totally apart. We filled in the main hole right there where it attaches to the table. And then you can see here the offset marking there because we filled it in and then drilled a new hole. Once we drilled a new hole so it was in the right position, it would actually work. So normally your flax would hang on to the distaff, and it would, or not hang, but it would be wrapped with a ribbon because you'd have these big long pieces. Well, this flax, I wanted to spin flax the way it had been, done originally on this wheel. This flax came as roving, ready to spin, so you don't really put it up on there. I'm showing you the fibers here. So I kind of looped it around it just so you had the idea. This is where the flax normally would have been, and you would have pulled it straight from there. But in this case, I can't really do that. So, but yeah, I thought it was only right to give the first spin on this to be with the flax the way it was originally, the wheel had been made for. And I was using a spray bottle here instead of a bowl. So now I've never spun flax before. I mean, I have spinning wheels, but I have never spun flax before. I ordered this just so that I could try this. And so I've never spun on this wheel before. I've never spun flax before. So this is a totally new experience. I wasn't sure how the wheel was going to work. I wasn't sure how this fiber was going to work. So it was a little bit tricky trying to figure this out. And the wheel itself, I mean, it kind of takes me. Normally, you give your wheel a little push and then you start pedaling and you're off. This one, I've kind of got to push it twice to get the momentum really going with my foot. And if I stop at all, it starts to unspin like this right here. And I don't know why that is, but it does make it a little bit trickier. So here's the here's the fiber. It's kind of hard to show you here, but here's the fiber that's been spun. Flax, I think, is traditionally just needed to be spun once because it has such a long staple length. And once you have spun it like this, it's really strong. I mean, I'm pulling on it there and it's not popping. And with most of your fibers, your wool and stuff like that, you can do that and break your fiber on when you pull hard enough on purpose. But with the flax, it's pretty strong. Even being that thin, it's strong. Well, if you like this video, click like, and if you'd like to see more, click subscribe. And I really hope you enjoyed this and like how this wheel came out. And we'll see you again soon.